Welcome to the Drum Departmental this week. Today we have Mike Dawson, our very own Michael Dawson, providing a master class for us. Mike has received his bachelor's degree in Mus Ed from West Virginia University and a master's in music from the University of the Arts. He's a senior lecturer in music journalism and drum set at the University of the Arts and operates a recording studio out of his home, formerly in New Jersey and now in Pittsburgh. And he's a wonderful person, an incredible player. Please help me welcome Mike Dawson.
Yay, everyone. All right, so I'm going to try to get this so I'm not staring at myself the whole time. There we go. There's everybody. Hope everyone had a good spring break. I'm going to focus this, I'm going to keep this a tight hour tops. I'm going to focus on some drum stuff, but I want to also make sure that any questions that anyone might have, I want to try to address. So please open the use the chat for that. So rather than like raising your hand or whatever. So just if you have any question about anything, throw it in the chat. A little bit more about my background for those of you I haven't worked with before. I've spent the past nearly 17 years working as part of the editorial staff at Modern Drummer magazine. So that means I've been interviewing artists and product reviews and handling educational content, working on book projects, video projects, photo shoots, you name it, anything that you could think of that would be in music journalism or drum journalism, dealing with publicists and artists directly, all of that stuff. So any information in that world that you might want to know about, please ask about that side of media and publicity and how do you get an endorsement, all that, what's involved in product development, how do you get a book published, any of that kind of left side of actual playing the instrument stuff, please throw it in the chat and I'll get to it throughout the hour. Also, as Steve said, I have a home studio that I've been recording tracks for artists all around the world for 15 years or so. So any information you might want to ask about that, how to deal with that, from miking to mixing to choosing gear to not having to spend $100,000 to get up and running, how the process works, let me know. What else? A lot of my performing these days is hybrid, so I'm using a lot of loops and samples and triggers and backing tracks for all kinds of gigs. So not just big production shows, but also club dates. I'm asked to trigger bass drum samples and that kind of stuff. That's probably a whole other course, but if there's any like simple questions about the tech side of being a hybrid drummer, playing with loops, please throw it in there. What was the last thing? Broadway. I spent 2 years, up until COVID struck. I was one of the first call subs for Lion King on Broadway. So if you have any questions about that, how do you learn a show? How do you become a sub? What was involved? I would love to share as much as I can about that. Okay, all that's out of the way. So we are going to definitely talk about some drum stuff. There is no handout. And that's on purpose. I think if I say anything or play anything that piques your interest, please pick up a pen and write it down on paper. I've found there's no better way to commit something to your own ownership than to actually writing it out on paper with a pen. That way it's now part of you. And I think back, we've been going to drum clinics since I think 1992 was my first drum clinic, Dom Famularo. I remember one handout from those clinics because they just become a collection. They go in a folder and I almost never pull them back out. The one I remember, Ed Shaughnessy, 1993. Why do I remember it? He autographed it, so it became something that was like special for me as a 14-year-old kid. And he had handwritten his handout, so I felt like there was just something more. He had, put his DNA on that page. Therefore, it was my responsibility to use it. Literally the only handout I remember and it was left-hand. It was left-hand strength building exercises. So that's from my experience. If you hear anything that piques your interest, please just write it down. Or if you have to type it later, write it in your journal. It'll definitely help. Okay, no questions so far? Good. What I want to talk about today. If you ask any musician, most drummers, definitely bass players, what's the most important thing for a drummer to do? Keep good time, right? Number one, above all else, keep good time. What does that mean? What does it mean to keep good time? I think the obvious is you don't rush, you don't drag, you can play a tempo consistently. But there's much more to it than that. So I want to break it down into like 4 layers of time. You've got big picture form, which I think of as the song structure, the entire song. That's still time, right? Because you start from 0, 0, 0, and you go to 3.5 minutes or whatever. That's still time. You're still the keeper of the form, the big picture time. You've got to shape the song appropriately. You've got to play the right parts. You've got to lead in dynamically up and down where it needs to go. So you can play with good form time. We'll talk about how to practice that once I get through the other steps. So then if you go one step down, you break the form down, you got phrasing. You have to have an intrinsic kinetic connection with the 4-bar phrase. Almost all music is built from 4-bar phrases. 8-bar phrases if you're playing like up-tempo jazz, but even that you can kind of divide into 2 4-bar phrases. 12-bar blues, 3 4-bar phrases. So you've got to develop the ability to internalize a 4-bar phrase regardless of what is craziness might be happening in the music with the soloist, with how syncopated you're playing, whatever's happening, whatever permutations and hemiolas and modulations, there needs to be something inside of you that does not forget these 4-bar signposts. And you go one step lower, pulse. This is probably where most of us think, what's it mean to keep good time? It means can you play quarter notes without speeding up or slowing down, right? I think of it as the unshakable internal cowbell, right? It's just always going on. It's always cranking. It's incessant. It does not adjust. It does not speed up or slow down just because you're playing something fast or slow or hard or easy. It's relentless internal cowbell. Next level, the 4th level, is subdivision. That would be, for me, I imagine the shaker. Whatever the fastest subdivision that is in the music that you're playing, that needs to be also incessant. So you've got this cowbell, dunk, dunk, chick, 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 subconscious, 24/7, right? And so how do you develop these 4 things? This is the hard part, because we can all play to a click, but the problem with playing to a click, we'll just throw a metronome one here. What voice? Oh, I've got a human voice. See if you can hear this.
1, 2, 3.
You can hear that?
4. 1, 2.
The problem
3,
with playing with a quarter
4,
note click.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
I mean, that was an extreme. Sorry for the popping. I have a foot switcher here that is acting up, but that's an extreme version of letting the click be the pulse, and you're not the one providing the pulse, right? So how do you develop, we're going to talk about each of these, how you develop a strong quarter note pulse, how you develop a strong sense of subdivision, how do you internalize 4-bar phrases, and then how do you learn to absorb the big picture of form. Let's start with the easy one. Form. It's not easy, but in concept, difficult in execution. So how do you develop form time? This is transcribing. This is charting out tunes. This is listening to something so many times that you know every detail of every part. You can, like there's a certain thing in in Freddie Freeloader, when I know when Jimmy Cobb does that on the hi-hat. You know, it's just, I've listened to it so many times that I just know. In Matrix by Chick Corea, there's some Roy Haynes stuff that no matter what, I could be on the other side of the house. If that track is playing, I know when he's going to do it. I know when it's coming, right? So it's just absorbing the music to the point where you could literally sit by yourself in silence and hear the entire track in your imagination. That to me is when, okay, now I know a tune. How does that improve your time? When you're on a gig or in a session and you're playing a song, you're not thinking, what do I do next, right? It's just second nature. Therefore, the time is going to feel like it has forward momentum. It's going to feel like you're steering the ship. You're guiding the band time. You're shaping the song form. If you don't know what's happening, if you don't know where's the stop in the bridge, and you're thinking about it, when you get to that spot, your time's going to suffer. You're going to play a little bit weak, a little apprehensive. This is something I learned playing on Lion King. Everything needs to be going this way. With a 20-piece orchestra and, 50 dancers and singers on stage, the number one note I got back from everyone was set the table, drive the bus, just go, right? Think. It's like tight roping. You know, you have to just go. The moment you think, oh, you fall off. So that sensation to me was totally foreign because I was used to listening and adjusting my time. So I listen, bass player's playing a little bit behind the beat. Let me slow down. I'm listening, guitarist is a little bit ahead of the beat. Let me push ahead. That creates this weird ebb and flow that's not good, where if you're on the tightrope and you drive forward, that's the way to do it. The only way I could get to that point was I wasn't thinking about what's coming next in the song. I know what's coming next. Therefore, I'm fully prepared. I'm ready for it. I set it up dynamically, properly. Everyone feels comfortable and confident when we get through the song. So, how do you practice good form time? Listening. Listening intently, not passively. Make it your goal to memorize every comping pattern. It's almost impossible, but memorize every comping pattern that Philly Joe plays on Milestones. Just make that an objective and see how far you can get. All right, let's break it down to phrasing. We're going to do a group participation little thing here. So, let's see, let me pick a tempo.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so we're going to use an Indian hand clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. In the third bar, 1, 3, and then 1. Right, so it's clap, palm, 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 clap, palm, 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 clap, 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 palm, palm, palm. It's a 4-bar phrase. You do that, I'm going to play 4-bar phrases with the click, and I'm going to slowly start to get away from the obvious resolutions. Just see if you can stick with it, and I'm going to turn this off and do it again.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
4.
1,
2,
2,
4. 1, 2, 3,
ready.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
All right, that was easy with the click. Now without the click, same thing. 1, 2, 3, and. Hopefully y'all made it through. So for me, I practice that by doing that exercise with all my favorite music. Think, just pick whatever you think is the funkiest, coolest stuff. Herbie Hancock, Headhunters, Mike Clark, that stuff that's just always kind of challenging your sense of where the one is. And I found that almost everything is 4-bar phrases. There are a few like modern things and fusion things that might have five-bar phrases or deliberately extended, but then you grow to like, you hear them, you feel them. You know where those deviations from the 4-bar phrase happen. So how did I practice that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Counting out loud. Back to drum lesson number 1, 5th grade. I didn't want to believe it. Kevin Lloyd, count out loud. I didn't want to believe him. And it wasn't until I was probably 30 that I went back and said, you know what, I should probably explore this counting out loud thing. Changed my world, 100%. It made me realize how much I didn't own the pulse. It was kind of heartbreaking and depressing. And some of you that I'm working with privately know the feeling. It's like, oh yeah, everything I thought I could play, I can't play. And it's true, you can't play it. You can't play it with full confidence if you can't count over top of it. David Garibaldi illustrated it perfectly. That dude was playing wicked stuff. His counting never swayed, right? So just go through everything you know, and can you count 4-bar phrases? Can you play basic fills? 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and not lose the counting. Don't use the excuse that it's difficult to play, therefore I can't count. That means you don't really know how to play it accurately, right? Easiest way to get a sense of phrasing is to just count out loud. Same thing with bebop. When I realized that near the end of his life, Art Blakey was pretty much deaf, Elvin Jones was pretty much deaf, and their band still killed it, was huge to me in that he was just playing phrasing. All these guys were just playing phrasing. They were playing the tune, and the vocabulary naturally progressed out of what the melody would shape and all of that, but you can riff up-tempo swing, so 8 bars. literally, the horn player could be playing anything over top of that, and it's going to make sense. I played 32 bars, and I gave a little tiny push at the end of every 8 bars to remind everybody, oh yeah, we're going to the next section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the 8th bar, just a dun, 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 dun. Tony did that beautifully on 7 Steps to Heaven. You could listen to 7 Steps to Heaven. Almost end of every 8-bar phrase, he does a little push on the end of 4. It's almost predictable, but no one would question that he's not listening or interacting or being creative. He's just outlining the form, right? So try that. If you're having trouble following jazz chords and jazz harmony, just pick a riff. That's a very popular one. 1 and the end of 2. Just play that along with the track, and then every 4 bars put a little hit on the and of 4. And you're going to sound like Jimmy Cobb, sort of. And it's going to reinforce the 4-bar phrase. Cool? Any questions so far? I don't see anything in the chat yet. If you have any questions, just shout them out as well. Okay, let's talk about pulse. This is the biggie. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the great session drummer Shannon Forrest. He's currently in Nashville, but he toured with Toto for, gosh, I think almost 10 years really when you think about it. At least 5 years. He was the drummer in Toto. The most precise, accurate drummer I've ever witnessed in the flesh. I was fortunate to go to his studio and interview him for Modern Drummer and helped him set up he got a recording custom kit in the mail that day. I helped him put the heads on it for the first time, so there was nothing special about the instrument. When he hit them, it sounded like a fully mixed, mastered record. So precise, so accurate, so balanced, and so confident. So I asked him, what's the key to developing good time? And this blew my mind. I never thought about it like this. He said, most drummers, the time is up here. It's at the end of the stick. The time needs to be down here. Everything is coming from here, meaning from you, from your soul, from your solar plexus. So no matter what you play, it's dictated from the inner pulse that you have constant control of, which I think is what allows you to play very sparsely. Like, think about the extreme. Most of us want to fill in all the subdivisions, right? Because we're using the sticks to play the time. We're relying on the motion of the sticks to play the time. What if you take all that away? Can you still play good time? When I first went I was letting the stick control my time. It wasn't accurate. Then I tried to settle back in. But you should be able to play a strong, powerful pocket with no chatter, space, just play the kick and snare. You ever practice that? You ever practice all of your beats with no hi-hat or ride? Try it. You'll quickly realize how strong your inner pulse is or how weak your inner pulse is. So how do you develop it? Same thing, counting. That whole time I was playing, in my mind, I was hearing chick, 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 doom, 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 and also 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 2. I was hearing the phrase constant, subconscious. So you could do that. Now, if you're going to use a metronome, here's what I would do to start developing your sense of pulse. Start with a quarter note.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Go a little bit quicker.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Don't fill in all the gaps. Just try to play quarter note grooves and then assess how's that feel. Confident, not confident. If it doesn't feel confident at all, then you just add the next layer of safety.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
And if it's still shaky, add your 16ths in. So, but don't play the 16ths. Add them in, but don't play them.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
So a lot of what I found with developing pulse and subdivision, which we'll get to next, is it's also ear training. Yes, you've got to learn how to play it, but it's ear training. If you can't hear the flams, you'll never be able to fix the flams. This was another thing that Shannon kind of blew my mind, and I did an experiment on my own to kind of prove it. He says you have to be within 10 milliseconds in order for it to be perfectly in time. Anything outside of 10 milliseconds starts to sound like you're out of time or ahead or behind the beat. That's a very tight, a very tight threshold. I did a test, a super nerdy test with Ableton Live. I put 2 snare drum samples completely aligned, perfectly aligned, and just started how many milliseconds, delaying one. After a while, I could hear 1 millisecond of delay with 2 perfectly the exact same sound. When it was like a kick and a snare, it wasn't until I got to like 12 that it was like, okay, something's off. And when you get to like 30, it's like that's a totally different rhythm. So we're talking about a threshold of like grace notes. So you're talking unisons versus like drum corps style flams versus kind of wider like rock or drum set flams. Very tight window. So you have to develop your ability to hear that, and we'll talk about that more when I get to subdivision. But that was another revelation, that you can practice to a metronome all day, all night. If you're not focusing on hearing it, and if you're not listening to the sound of the click versus the attack of your hand and getting rid of any perceived difference, if that's not your goal, then you're always going to be kind of like swimming around it. I'll address that in a minute. But let's talk about pulse exercises. Jason, do you ever work on the quarter note groove exercises that are really, yes, I do. Okay.
1,
So if I do that, this is when I kind of go psycho with counting.
1, 2, 3,
I get kind of aggressive.
1,
1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. Because there's so much air that if you just kind of like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2, it's really hard. Again, it's ear training. Because I'm slurring my counting, I can't hear the attacks. Where if I go
1,
E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 3 E and 4 E and
1.
I can tighten my counting with my playing with the click using a very short sound. That brings me up to another piece of advice. When you start something, this is going to show my age, but there was a movie, I think it came out in 92, Major League. Charlie Sheen, is that the one? No, no, Naked Gun. Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen, is that his name? The whole premise is there's some sort of sound that triggers one of the baseball players to become an assassin and go like murder someone. It's ridiculous. So it's like, you know, something, he hears something and he turns into a robot and he goes and becomes an assassin. I use that visualization so when I start a click,
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm on it. As soon as I get to the next one, there's no wishy-washy. There's no let me feel my way into this tempo. So, for instance, as soon as I hear the click, it's like, get on the machine and let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
There's no measure warm-up. There's no half-beat warm-up. And this is for everything. If I'm playing rudiments, if I'm working on technique, as soon as I hear that click, I'm locked in. The rest of the world is gone. All I care about is being locked 100% with that thing. Why? It's great for gigs. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're rocking. It's not give us 4 bars to figure out what the heck the tempo is supposed to be, and now we're rocking. That's made a big difference for me on gigs with just everyone feeling comfortable from the first downbeat. Everyone's a little nervous, a little edgy. Monitor mix might be weird. I know when I give you these 4, we're on it. And then everyone can kind of just chill. All right, great question. Took me down a different topic I forgot I was going to mention. So, pulse, how do you develop your pulse? As I said before, if you only play to a quarter note click, let me turn all this other stuff off. By the way, I'm using the internal metronome on the Yamaha EAD10 for this. So
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
I can be kind of like laissez-faire about the time. But if you get rid of the downbeat and all you've got is the upbeat.
1. 1.
Oop, turn this off.
1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1.
No way that I or anyone could do that without the click flipping if you weren't owning the time. I'm not even hearing that offbeat. It's just like oh yeah, there's the click. I'm listening for the 1 to remind me that I'm back at the downbeat. That took a long time for me to work up. Very frustrating, but it's subconscious now, and it has changed everything. I can't stress enough. Being able to do that confidently at any tempo, with any exercise or any groove, has made everything easier. I feel like at this point I could play anything within reason, not lose the time, not fall out of the form, and not like sound silly, right? That changed it because I was insecure about my time and I didn't realize it, which meant everything I played had this sort of sheen of I hope this is right, I hope this feels good, you know, I hope this is making the band happy versus I know my quarter note isn't going to shake. Then we can deal with what needs to deal with if we need to pull it back or push, or you know, there's a couple bass players I work with all the time that they like to sit behind the pulse, knowing that now I know that my internal pulse is, you know, 80% where it needs to be. Then it becomes more fun because I'm not adjusting. It's not a cue like, oh, he's behind the beat, I better slow down, or you know, he's playing a little bit on top, I better speed up, and then we just start chasing each other. We can fatten the pocket because he knows I'm not going to change, so he can delay his note until the last possible millisecond, and all of a sudden it becomes a super wide beat. No way in the world I would be able to do that if I couldn't confidently play with a click not giving me the downbeats. For me, the best tool I've ever stumbled across. And then you can go even further to do E's and the U's.
One. 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 One.
Again, that was years to get to that point where I'm subconsciously, it's not even there anymore. The goal, which is super important, is to normalize the uncomfortable stuff, right? The uncomfortable, the easy stuff is the downbeat and the ands. Why are the E's and the U's uncomfortable? Because we don't practice them enough. We don't emphasize them enough. So you can separate exercise, which I've worked with many of the students, so you'll be familiar. Just play a quarter note with one hand and just work through all the different subdivisions of 1/16th note. Just simple one note patterns. And then make up some little rhythm, little solos over that emphasizes the E's and the U's to normalize it, to make those feel just as comfortable as your downbeats. Then it becomes a musical device. For me, it's a way to kind of interject something. So that was an extreme version, but it becomes a musical device rather than a pain point. For instance. Like none of those feel more right or wrong or comfortable or insecure than the other. So it just becomes a piece of vocabulary. And usually the reason that we speed up and slow down is because we don't control those awkward subdivisions properly. We can play downbeats, we can play ands, everything in between that's a mess. And that's when you get that sort of feeling of like something's just not right with that drummer. I don't know what it is. Something's just not right. They're in time, they're playing the right parts. It just doesn't feel good. It's usually those E's and U's and whatever little nuanced subdivisions aren't being cared for properly. Which transitions into the fourth tier of solid time, which is subdivision. Any questions? We good? Okay. This is the one that I had to spend the most time on because again, it's all ear training. So let me change this metronome to not be that sound.
One.
Let's go back to the normal one. Nope, not that one. That one's terrible. Let's see. Nope, man, these are all Bugle. 3, cowbell. Nope. Stick, there it is. Okay. All right, here's the point. You want all the subdivisions rolling, right? What you have to do, at least what I had to do, was find what tempo do I need to be at where I can hear every subdivision as accurately as possible. So this is 90. To me, that feels pretty good, but in the beginning, no. I had to go. This goes back to Jason's comment. I had to go back to here, 50, and really listen to every attack. Try to get rid of any discrepancy and identify. There we go. It took me like 4 bars to get on it. So what did I do? Stick control. Exercise 1. With a deadly slow, precise metronome in earbuds, which was also a key step for me, so I could hear the click very accurately, very quickly. There's no air between the metronome and my ears to get blurry. And then play them on the pad, stick control, working down. And I developed a system for myself to where, how do I then become creative and explore my own ideas while still working on this precision thing, this subdivision control. So this is what I came up with. This will be a handout I'll drop on the UARTS page afterwards. So if you think, what is stick control? It's at least the first page, it's singles and different combinations of doubles, and a few 3s and 4s, but let's just focus on this. It's mostly singles and doubles. So what if we take it down to be even simpler? What if it's just singles and one of the hands plays doubles? So you've got, rights. So you can just play singles, and then maybe some rights. So I'm just making up phrases that are basically like paradiddle inversions on the right side. So then I did that with the metronome. Always listening to the click and making sure my hands are in alignment with the click. So I'm trying to get seamless sound with my hands, and improvising some right hand doubles at will, making it starting simply and then adding more and more as I get comfortable, and always evaluating. Am I in time? Am I out of time? What threw me out of time? Was it the right being on the downbeat that threw me out of time? It's usually going to be the second note that's out of time, so listen to your second note. It sounds exactly the same, but in my mind, all I'm hearing is that second note. Is that in time? Is that in time? Is that in time? Is that in time? That's all I'm mentally, I've cleared everything else out, and I'm just listening to that second double. Again, it's ear training to get the precision in order to play good subdivisions. So that's with right hand doubles. Then you can make some music out of it various ways. The easiest, most logical thing would maybe accent one hand. So accent all the rights. Same concept, I'm listening to how that affects my subdivision control. again, I'm not losing track of the first steps: form, phrasing, pulse. All that is still happening. I'm just adding an extra tier. So I'm still counting in my head 4-bar phrases. I'm still listening to the pulse or creating it, making sure I've got the internal cowbell happening. And now I'm fine-tuning my hearing to see what is this new technical thing where my right hand is playing full strokes due to my time. Contrary to what I initially thought, it wasn't the accents that were causing the timing problems. It was now the ghost notes that were slipping in and out of time. So same thing, I try to focus not on the accents, but on the unaccents. And once I did that, I realized it was the little left-hand stuff that was getting ahead and behind. It cleaned everything up. What does that translate into your playing on the kit? Ghost note grooves. Sure the little stuff that no one actually hears is as accurately in time as possible, because the tendency, as soon as you start dragging or rushing that little bit, it's cumulative. So after 4 bars, 8 bars, 12 bars, 16 bars, you're now out of time. It's not because you dropped a 16th note necessarily, or because you're hearing a different tempo. It's your subdivisions are just microscopically crushing or expanding too much, which is then forcing your entire, by the end of 3 minutes, you're probably 10 BPM different from where you started. Just tiny little bits. So if you can clean up those more than the accents, it's going to keep you locked in. Any questions? We good? All right, so let's just take this sticking improvisation concept a little bit further. So that was right-hand accents. What if you accent just the lefts, but still play some right-hand doubles? So I'm doing singles, some right-hand doubles, accenting all the lefts. It was a mess right out of the gate, right? Let's do it again. Get on it, Mike. Now suddenly the hand that I thought was good is out of whack, right? The low rights are really off. So now I know I need to work on it. Just slow it way down, go back to the beginning. Get these things tight. Okay, and then, so this is kind of like you can choose your own adventure. You want to do some of the rights accented and some of them ghost notes, or some of the lefts accented or some of the lefts ghost notes. You can do random accents at this point, but still sticking to the rule of singles and only a right-hand double. Or you can start messing with orchestration, because your orchestration is going to influence your pulse, your time, your subdivision control, because of the physical time it takes to go from here to here is different than the time it takes to go from here to here. So if you only just let your body do what it wants to do, you're going to be slower coming from here. You're going to be just a little bit slower coming from here, and you're probably going to be okay here. If you use the same amount of motion, it's just going to be slower. So you're going to be always late on this note, or maybe rushing here if you're overcompensating. So let's go to, we're going to lock the right hand on the ride cymbal. Left hand is now going to move. I have my foot tom is covered, so just the rack tom, hi-hat, and snare drum. And addressing what happens to my subdivisions when I start moving it. and I tried to sneak the bass drum in, and everything is out of whack again, right? So every time I add a new thing, I have to be cognizant of what is it doing to my subdivision. Is it okay, or do I need to go back to square one and now, slow it down? Let's go back to 60, and I'm going to add the bass drum in. The bass drum is going to be doubling some of the right-hand notes that makes it feel like a groove. I'm rushing like crazy, right? So the first step is, what am I doing? And then how do I fix it? Probably take a breath and chill out. Right, so I had to abandon the idea of moving my left hand to address the problem, which was the right foot and the right hand were not in a line. Now let's get the left hand moving again. So the whole time I'm just listening, which ones were ahead, which ones were behind, what motions, splitting doubles between two surfaces, that's a whole other thing. So the whole goal is to always be listening to yourself and addressing it. So I've been asking every drummer, every time I interview them or hang out with them or having dinner or coffee, it's like simple questions like, what did you do to develop your time? Do you practice to an offbeat click? Do you practice to a gap click? All these questions. Ash Sohn had a great response. If you know him, he's a great session drummer in the UK. He's like, no, I never practiced any of that stuff, but I always think about time. Always. So just thinking about time is going to make you play with better time, because if you have an internal clock that's saying 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and your hands aren't 1E and a 2, your hands aren't in alignment with that, you're going to fix it. If your right hand is always off, you're gonna make the changes to get your right hand aligned with your internal time. If you're just playing from the end of your sticks, it's never going to be in time. You're always going to be guessing. So just thinking about time is going to improve your time. Improving your time is going to make you a more confident player. It's going to make you a more musical player. It's going to make you a more hireable player. And for me, it's made playing the drums way more fun, because I don't have to worry about, do I sound good or bad based on my time anymore. Now it's, do I sound good or bad based on my sound, my touch, my ideas, and how much I'm listening to what's happening. It's not, man, he really rushed, or man, that dude just plays sloppy. Like, that stuff is gone for the most part. Still sloppy, 80 BPM, kicking my butt right now. But I know it, right? It's like the first step is admitting you have a problem. 80 BPM is my problem today, and I'm going to address it later. All right, so we've hit the hour. Are there any questions about this or anything else? Drum related, drum industry related, professional career, musical, recording, technology, where to get the best pierogies in Pittsburgh, which I don't know yet. Oh, by the way, I did start a new gig at Drum Factory Direct, which is that's why I'm here in Pittsburgh. It's an e-commerce site that sells basically all everything, drum parts and accessories, everything but like complete kits. So I'm also in that world of like, how do you refurbish a drum, or how do you, what do brass hoops do versus steel hoops. So any nerdy questions you might have, I've probably dealt with them in the past few years. Any questions? Let me wrap it up. No? Great. Well, hopefully you jotted some ideas down. Feel free to follow up with me at any point if you have any questions as you start messing with this stuff. I found that the more I dove into it, the more questions I end up having. So feel free to reach out at any time.
Actually, Mike, the click stuff that you were using, was that just from the EAD, or were you coming from? Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is the internal click. I don't use it often, but it's great for this. It has a bunch of voices. I found two that I like. Yeah, the Yamaha EAD-10. I've been resisting the urge. This is my teaching / practice creative space. I've been resisting the urge to do any miking in here because I have a studio right over here that's fully mic'd up and ready to roll. So in this room, I'm like, no mics, minimal lighting. EAD-10 sounds pretty darn good. It has a sound that is its own thing, but it's a pretty valuable investment if you have the money to check it out.
Yes, it's amazing. You guys should check it out.
I've been using it on gigs for a while too, using it as a trigger system because you can trigger the kick. And also, it's a simple way to get in-ear monitoring. So if you run the sound from the board into the audio input on this, plug your in-ears to this, you've got a headphone system ready to roll. You don't have to have a separate mixer or anything like that.
If you're playing along with an MP3 and we want to hear it at the same time, are you just putting a thumb drive into the EAD?
That, or I run it. I have this drum machine. Actually, the batteries were dead. Is it working? This drum machine is running to the aux in right now, and I have it routed, so you should be able to hear it. Let's see. Hearing that? Yeah. Yeah, so that's just coming out of this drum machine into the aux in, and I just changed the setting in the EAD-10, so the aux in is going to the headphones and the main outs. Which wouldn't be good if you're doing a in-ear monitor mix, because then your band's feed will be going through the EAD-10 and then out again. You'll be getting a duplicate feed, so be careful with that. You want it to only go to the headphone output. The mics in this tend to feedback too, so you have to really be careful with the sensitivity on a gig. I've had that happen a couple times where if the PA system was too close to me, this mic would feedback. So make sure the speakers are pretty far away. But it's a cool little system. I don't endorse Yamaha, but I like this product. Anything else?
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question. So, when you moved to Pittsburgh,
Yep.
was it hard to find a practice space or a studio space? And how do you go about doing that when you move to a new city?
No, I'm fortunate that we got this house that has this room as a lower level, and the bedrooms are the other side of the house on the upper level. So, and I have this clear sonic booth, which does wonders for, it's probably about 50–60% sound reduction. So I can play in here pretty much full volume anytime and not disturb anyone upstairs. If you're in the dining room right above, you can hear pretty good. But I haven't had to do the lockout space thing, fortunately. Everywhere I've been, when I lived in Philly, I was just going to the UArts rooms and practicing. When I was in West Virginia, what did I do? We had practice rooms. At one point, we rented a trailer. We had just a double-wide trailer, and the front bedroom became the drum room. So we just had to be creative. Jersey, I didn't have a practice space when I lived in an apartment. I had an electronic kit. That was my solution for that. And I lived above a liquor store, so when they were closed, I could just do whatever I wanted with the e-kit. Then we got a house, so we've just been fortunate to have houses. So I haven't done the rental space. Some folks who've had to deal with New York City will probably have more info on that. But yeah, I think this type of thing, this is like $2,000. If you think about how much you're going to pay in rent for a space. If you're in an apartment, this isn't going to work. But if you're in like a house, this, I didn't have to do anything to the room. I could just tear it apart. And this has been in 4 different places at this point. Modern drummer office, 2 of my houses, another rehearsal space. So it's super portable. It's heavy, but super portable.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? No? All right, we can wrap it up then.
Thanks again, Mike, for doing this excellent class.
My pleasure.
Incredible information. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I mean, don't wait until you're 35 to get your time together like I did. Trust me on that. You will be employable. I've lost gigs for having bad time. I can guarantee it. Steve, you know Gary Granger,
Oh, yeah,
bass player.
sure.
So if you've ever watched the Dennis Chambers video from like the early '90s with John Scofield band, Serious Moves and In the Pocket, bass player is Gary Granger, one of the greatest bass players on earth. Gary Granger lives around Baltimore, and he will play with anybody if he's available. If you got a gig, if he's available, he'll take it. I played a wedding with Gary Granger. I played a fusion gig at a club in downtown Frederick with Gary Granger. Very nice man. He never asked for my number. Never wanted to, at the end of the gig, it was just, why? Because I just wasn't doing it right. I wasn't playing with good time. Had I had my stuff together as a 22-year-old and we were able to groove, I probably would have played with Gary a whole lot more and learned a lot. Because he did, here was his litmus test. We were playing a wedding. I think we were playing Tender Madness or something. Slow. He started walking on the offbeats, like the third triplet. And he didn't stop. He did it like the whole time. And it was so heartbreaking. Like at the end of it, I was like, man, he just told me to go home. It was disturbingly crushing. He didn't have to say anything. He was just like, ding, 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 get on it, kid. Ding, ding. He didn't stop. He did it with a smile. So that was like, okay, I'm never going to play with Gary again. He schooled me. So get your time together and seek out those mentorships. Had I not been so insecure and also cocky, I would have just asked him, like, hey man, what can I do? What, be honest, some feedback. What should I do to get to the next level? He would have told me, but I didn't ask. I was just so embarrassed. I just stuck my head in the sand, took my ball and went home. So seek out advice. Play with people that have incredible time. Seek out people to play with that are better than you. Play with drum machines. Play with loops. I mean, if you have a Mac, open up the Apple Loop Library and use that as your click so you're not getting so used to having to have the metronome. Get something that's more textural and maybe suggest a quarter note and use that as your metronome. Anything you do is going to improve it. Like Ash said, just think about your time and respect it, and it will improve. And then if you want to go super nerdy like I did, you can take these different paths.